Welcome back live with you now here on In Focus. We're joined now by DA leader John Steehusien, IFP President Velenkosi Hlabisa, and EFF spokesperson Vuyani Pambo to react to the President's address tonight. Vuyani, let me start with you on the line. The President breaking with, I suppose, his tradition of strictly sticking to addressing the nation on the COVID-19 response, but decided to address the question of civil disobedience or rioting, if you will, and he calls it sporadic but increasingly violent protests. Is the authority of police in the country being undermined at the moment? Right, Vuyani, I don't know if you got me there. Okay, we seem to not have Vuyani there on the line. I'll get back to him. John, let me give it to you first, then maybe you can respond. The President breaking with his normal tradition when it comes to these addresses and addressing the issue of the violent riots we have been seeing in KwaZulu-Natal as well as Johannesburg, calling them sporadic but increasingly violent protests. Is the authority of the state being undermined?
Absolutely, and I think it goes beyond sporadic. This is an internal ANC battle that's now breached the streets of South Africa. I don't think it's a ethnic or tribal situation that the President spoke about. We've got lawlessness that's taking place as a result of Mr. Zuma's incarceration, and that is now spilling over into violence. And I certainly hope that the President's strong words this evening in his speech are going to be matched by strong action on the ground. We cannot descend into a lawlessness where you have, thugs and mobs running towns and cities amok with this type of behavior. It's the last thing the economy needs at this time. It's the last thing that South Africa needs at this time. And the security services need to rein it in and rein it in quickly, because if they don't, it actually undermines the entire lockdown. Any business owner looking at the scenes of the last week, I think, is rightly angry that they're being told to shut down their tavern, their shebeen, their guest house, their restaurant. And ordinary supporters of Mr. Zuma, Mr. Magashule and others have been allowed to literally run around with no masks, breaking every one of the lockdown regulations. So I think for consistency of enforcement of the rule of law, the President's strong words must be matched by strong action by the law enforcement agencies.
We're going to come back in a moment to the Cabinet's review of the lockdown regulations. But Bob Hlabisa, let me get your reaction. The President saying these sporadic, increasingly violent protests or riots are based on ethnic mobilization. Is that a valid analysis?
Thabo, as well as the viewers, this is not true. I live in KwaZulu-Natal, and so many people, even around Nkandla, who are not ANC members, are not part of this lawlessness that is going on in this province. We should not shift the goalpost. The problem is factions within the ANC. The declaration was made on Sunday that should Zuma be arrested, there will be ungovernability of this province. Is exactly what is happening. The ANC should own this problem. They should own the mess. They should effectively clamp down these blockages because it destroys the economy. It inconveniences people. You never know whether you will arrive to your destination or what time are you going to arrive at home. And it inconveniences even emergency vehicles, ambulances. There is no mercy even for people who are in the ambulances. So now the ANC should take effective step as an organization to go down to their structures. If they deny that this is ANC factions, they have to engage their structures to bring an end of this anarchy. Police should be firm, and the President must monitor closely. Tomorrow, there are so many announcements of shutdown, banning, looting, and even killing. If need be, if the police cannot cope, the whole issue must be escalated to a tougher enforcement of law, to an extent of considering the army, as we have seen in Pietermaritzburg and around Pinetown. People are shooting at the police. This might be getting into an anarchy very soon unless the government becomes strong and tougher and quell it immediately.
Vuyana, I hope you can hear me. The president saying we are building, not shutting down. I think we've lost Vuyana there on the line. Okay, we'll try and establish the connection with Vuyana in a moment. Let's get back then to the review of the lockdown regulations. John, it seems the president, yet again, with the cabinet and the Coronavirus Command Council, they have put forward restrictions before considering the resources and the support that they need for those who are being restricted. You're telling poor people at this time who've probably lost their jobs, whose businesses have not been doing well, that you will remain closed. Or if you do open, you will have 50 people in or 50% capacity. I mean, is that adequate? Have they run out of creative ways, or is this what is necessary right now?
Well, I think it's better than where we were at 2 weeks ago, if we're completely honest. Some opening is better than no opening, but particularly with restaurants, the alcohol ban, I think, is going to hit them very badly. I think that a lot of the profitability in a restaurant comes from your ability to be able to sell alcohol with your meals. Restricting the capacity is also going to constrain them, but it's certainly better than forcing them to stay closed. I think the big welcome announcement this evening was around the TERS, the extension of the TERS program. Obviously, it needs to be rolled out much more efficiently and much more quickly than it was before. Businesses are in desperate need of this lifeline funding to be able to bridge them over this particular time. And I certainly hope government's going to be a lot more efficient in this than they've been in the past. And then the big thing is vaccines. None of this, the needle's not going to move until we start to hit the 200,000 to 250,000 vaccines in arms every single day. And we've just won the victory this week of getting government to move to a 7 days a week vaccination program and to find the funding to do that. And so we've got to radically do that. Unless we do that, much like rolling blackouts at Eskom have become a feature of life, these lockdowns are going to become a feature of our lives until we reach that critical stage of herd immunity, where we can start, like the United Kingdom is today, opening up their economy again and trying to get life back to some semblance of normal. That is the only opportunity we're going to have to really start to rebuild our broken and shattered economy. That was in trouble long before Corona hit the shores. And there's been a lot of blame on Corona, but the economy's been in deep trouble for the last decade because of poor policy choices. So there's a lot of work to be done, but we're only going to be able to start that work when we've got those jabs in arms and hit that herd immunity. And that should be the sole focus. And I think the president's missed a big trick by not harnessing the private sector as much as other countries have. In the United Kingdom, for instance, you can get a jab at Tesco's. In the US, you can go to Walmart and get one. There's huge opportunities to harness the public and the private sector to assist the public sector in being able to achieve that vaccination target. And we should be opening it up far wider than it's been opened already.
Security of supply, seemingly a big issue, Hlabisa, when it comes to vaccines. What do you make of the agreements between the AU and the EU, plus also the announcement by the United States of a donation of vaccines to African countries?
We welcome the announcements, as have even been conveyed by the president in relation to vaccine to African countries. Of course, we also welcome the address by the president. He really made a move, especially on the issue of restaurants. We really sympathize with the alcohol industry because we know how devastating this is to them, the additional 14 days, whilst on the other hand, we understand the challenges that emanate from alcohol. But on the issue of vaccination, our government got it wrong from the word go. This staggering in terms of age categories is not working. Many people who have been qualifying for too long are not showing up for their vaccination program. The IFP had long called that remove the age limit to as low as 30 years or somewhere 25 to 30 years so that you make it open, because many people are reluctant. Those who are willing should be given an opportunity to go and get vaccinated. They will even give courage to those who are hesitant. We have long called that open more sites closer to people so that they could be easily accessible. At the time when unemployment is very high, if a person has to catch two and connect two transports before he arrives in a vaccination site, it will be impossible for that person to reach the site. The IFP, therefore, says the government must move quicker now that they have heard and listened, that create more sites, make more private sectors participate, the medical practitioners, which people consult at the closest range, should be given an opportunity to dispense the vaccination, work 7 days a week, increase the manpower so that we vaccinate a bigger number of people at a shorter space of time.
Yeah.
Look, the government is still undecisive about the local government election. We can't talk of local government election in October unless we have reached a higher population vaccinated in South Africa.
John, let's talk about that a bit. The lockdown regulations going up now until almost the end of July. Prospects of still having those local government elections?
Well, I think the local government elections, as Professor Karim shared with the IEC committee, October should be fine for us to have them. Obviously, the registration weekend's been moved out already by concurrence of all the parties. So that registration weekend will take place at the end of the month. But, you know, we've got no choice. We've got to continue. Our democracy can't stand still in the face of the coronavirus. Many other countries, some far larger than us, some smaller than us, have conducted their elections during the COVID pandemic. Obviously, you've got to make sure that your democratic processes are not affected by this and that they do continue. I think there are many municipalities around this country that cannot wait another few months under their current governments. They need to be rescued from that poor governance, and I think the election should take place later this year, and that's certainly what we are working towards. And we're obviously, like everybody else, awaiting the outcome of the Mosenetti report to the IEC, and we'll obviously assess the impact of that report and make a decision thereafter.
Should we continue under such conditions? I mean, we possibly could see the moving of that registration by the IEC, and that will certainly then throw him off.
Well, I mean, you could always move a registration weekend out to whenever you needed to do it. I mean, you could do it during the week. It doesn't have to be a weekend. There's many other options that you can look at. So I don't think that we should throw the baby out with the bathwater just because we're now in the midst of a level 4. Some countries have had elections when they were on their highest lockdown level right at the beginning of the pandemic. I think countries like New Zealand and the like. I returned a month ago from Somaliland, where I went to observe their election that took place, and was free and fair election with a very fair result that's been internationally accepted. So I think that we must be careful that we don't, in the process of this, allowing parties to escape the democratic accountability that comes with those elections. But the big thing now is on getting jabs and arms, and that should be our big focus. The more jabs and arms we can get, the sooner we're going to get through this, because my worry is that, even if you postpone the election to February or March next year, there's no guarantee we're not going to be in a stage 4 then, because we're not vaccinating at the level we should, and it's unlikely we're going to reach herd immunity by the end of this year if the current rate of vaccinations continues, and if we don't bring in the private sector to be able to assist in massively driving up those numbers.
John Steehusien, I appreciate your time. Velenkosi Hlabisa, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, they couldn't establish that connection with Vaccination. Had him on the line.